I don't believe in ghosts, or at least I didn't. Not until that night on Route 84, when I picked up a girl who shouldn't have existed. I've driven that stretch of California highway hundreds of times, winding through Niles Canyon with its tight curves and steep drops. The kind of road that demands your full attention, even in daylight. At night, it's worse. Just your headlights cutting through fog so thick it feels like you're driving through clouds, and the darkness pressing in from all sides like something alive. It was late October, and I was heading home from a job site in Fremont, exhausted from a 12-hour shift and just waiting to get back to my apartment in Hayward. The radio had gone to static somewhere around Sunol, leaving me with nothing but the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing. That's when I saw her, standing on the shoulder near one of the canyon's sharpest turns, her arm raised in that universal gesture for help. She was young, maybe 17 or 18, wearing a white dress that seemed to glow in my headlights. And even from a distance, I could see she was soaking wet, like she'd been caught in a downpour even though it hadn't rained all week. I should have kept driving. Every instinct told me something was wrong, that girls in white dresses just don't appear on deserted highways in the middle of the night. But I couldn't leave her there. I pulled over and rolled down the window, asking if she needed a ride. She nodded, her face pale and expressionless, and climbed into the back seat without saying a word. I asked where she was going, and she gave me an address in Niles, her voice barely above a whisper, so soft I had to lean back to hear her. The air in the car had gone cold, that bone-deep chill that has nothing to do with weather, and when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I could see her staring straight ahead, water dripping from her hair into my upholstery. We drove in silence through the canyon, the fog getting thicker with every mile, and I kept trying to make conversation, but she wouldn't respond. I asked her name, if she was okay, if something happened, but she just sat there motionless, her hands folded in her lap. The temperature kept dropping and I cranked up the heat, but it didn't help, and I started to feel a creeping sense of dread that I couldn't explain. Something about her wasn't right. The way she barely seemed to breathe, the way her reflection in the mirror looked almost translucent, like I was seeing through her to the seat behind. When we finally reached the address she'd given me, a small house on a quiet street in Niles, I pulled up to the curb and turned around to tell her we'd arrived. The back seat was empty. No girl, no wet dress, no puddles of water on the upholstery that I just watched drip there minutes ago. The door hadn't opened. I would have heard it, would have felt the rush of cold air, but she was simply gone, like she'd never been there at all. I sat there, frozen, my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I should have driven away. I should have convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing, that exhaustion and fog had played tricks on my mind. But instead, I got out of the car and walked up to the house, my heart pounding, and knocked on the door. An elderly woman answered, her face lined with years of sadness. And when I started to explain what had just happened, that I'd given a girl a ride and she'd given me this address, her expression changed to something between grief and resignation. She invited me inside and led me to a small living room filled with photographs, and on the mantel was a picture of the girl I'd just picked up, wearing the same white dress, smiling at the camera. The woman told me her name was Sarah, that she died 20 years ago on Route 84 in a car accident on a foggy night, just like this one. She'd been coming home from a party when her car went off the road near the canyon's sharpest curve, and they didn't find her body until morning. The woman said I wasn't the first person to come to her door with the same story, that every few years someone would show up claiming they'd given Sarah a ride, that she'd disappeared from their car near this very house. I left without saying much more, my mind spinning, and I drove home in a daze. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation, that maybe it was a prank or a coincidence or something I couldn't quite understand yet. But when I got home and looked at my car, there were still wet spots on the back seat. The fabric was damp and cold to the touch, and a faint smell of rain and earth that hadn't been there before. I don't drive Route 84 anymore. I take the long way around, even if it adds an hour to my trip, because I can't shake the memory of that girl in white, the coldness in my car, the way she vanished. without a trace. Some people say she's still looking for a ride home, that she doesn't know she's dead, and that she's trapped in that moment between the party and the crash, forever reaching out to strangers who can't help her. I don't know if that's true, but I know what I saw, what I felt, and that sometimes the road between the living and the dead is thinner than we want to believe.